came out because the power failed. So we're going to chant the same bhajan again today because it's just such a we could chant this bhajan every single day. It's very special by Narahari Sakar, and I'll speak something about the translation. Jadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Kemone Darita De Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Kemone Darita De Radhara Mahima Premarasa Simha Jagate Janata Ke Radhara Mahima Premarasa Simha Jagata Janata Ke Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Demone Darita De Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Demone Darita De Madhura Brinda Vipina Madhuri Ravesha Chaturi Sa Madhura Brinda Vipina Madhuri Ravesha Chaturi Sa Varaja Vivati Avera Bhakati Varaja Duvati Avera Bhakati Shakata Hoi Toka Shakata Hoi Toka Yadi Gauranga Nahito Amane Haito Amane Darita De Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Kemone Darita De Yau Puna Puna Gauranga Raguna Sarala Hoi Oma Yau Puna Puna Gauranga Raguna Sarala Hoi Oma E Baba Sagare E Mana Dayala E Baba Sagare E Mana Dayala Na dekhe je ekajan Na dekhe je ekajan Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Demone Darita De Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Demone Darita De Gauranga Balia Nageno Galia Demone Darino De Gauranga Balia Nageno Galia Demone Darino De Narahariya Vasanadiya Narahariya Vasanadiya Emone Gadiya Che Emone Gadiya Che Yadi Gauranga Nahito Amane Haito Emone Darita De Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Emone Darita De Radhara Mahima Prema Rasa Simha Jagate Janata Ke Radhara Mahima Prema Rasa Simha Jagate Janata Ke Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Emone Darita De Yadi Gauranga Nahito Tabike Haito Emone Darita Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hare Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hare Oh, Gaura hey, 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 Gaura hey. Oh, Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Madana Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radha Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Radha Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Jaya Radha Gopinata Radha, Gopinata Radhe. Radha Gopinata Radha, Gopinata Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Ganhava Girit Hari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Satchinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Nityananda Rai Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Mahabhagavat Shila Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Saptam Goswami Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Shila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudiya Vedanta Acharya Ki Jai Jai Shila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Traya Ki Jai Jai Shila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada Ki Jai Namacharya Shila Hardas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Siga Hosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Ki Jai Burihat Madanga Ki Jai Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai Nam Bhajan Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Siddharshan Chakra Ki Jai Shingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantamanapetyam Apetya Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammaya Tayotarava Vinirustam Sarvabhutam Munim Hridimunam Anatoshmi Bhaktiya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmarita Rangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times, unto our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada. And all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya, and especially our most beloved Sachinandan Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai, and all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. So, I just want to read the translation of this beautiful bhajan that we just sang by Narahari Sakar. Narahari Sakar is the brother of Mukunda Sakar, the Ayurvedic physician, and he's the uncle of Raghunandan, and their place of pilgrimage is Kardaha, and that's where they stayed. So Narahari is actually older than Mahaprabhu, and he was writing so many Rasik, bhajans, etc. But then when Mahaprabhu appeared, he understood that this is that personality who is going to benedict this age. He understood completely the identity of Mahaprabhu. So I'll read this translation. If Sri Gauranga had not appeared, then what would have become of us? How would we have survived? Who could have taught the world about the glories of Srimati Radharani and the topmost limit of Prem Ras? Narahari Sako actually is Madhu Manjari, Madhumati Manjari in the spiritual realm. That's his spiritual identity. If you go to his place, there's a lake that he transformed into honey. Long story, beautiful story. But Narahari. So he's writing what would happen if Mahaprabhu had not come. We wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't be talking about Raganuga Bhakti. We wouldn't have any idea. We would be following rules and regulations. We would have no clear conception of what was Bhav Bhakti, what to speak of Prema Bhakti, what to speak of Braj Ras, what to speak of Bhakti Ras. Nothing of this would have existed without the causeless mercy of Mahaprabhu. Who would have had true insight to enter the sweet rapture of the forest of Vrindadevi and the power to render loving service in the mood of the damsels of Braj? Who would have even heard of this? Previously, there was Jaidev Goswami, Chandidas, Vichaspati, different poets, but their familiarity with Parakiya Ras was very much limited. Even Shukadev Goswami can't mention the name Radhika in the 10th canto descriptions of the Ras Leela, etc. So Mahaprabhu is bringing out this entirety of this most confidential pastime, or this confidential aspect of Krishna's Leela, which has been covered for the whole day of Lord Brahma, and is only just manifesting 500 years ago with the advent of Mahaprabhu. And then, of course, from Mahaprabhu, he divulged all of that confidentiality to Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami has passed it down unbroken. All the Goswamis, very, very carefully, by direct oral reception, all of these personalities were connected. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur taught Baladev Vidyabhushan. And then there was a gap, and Jagannath Das Babaji was there. And then Jagannath Das Babaji speaking directly to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaking directly with Gokishore Das Babaji. Gokishore Das Babaji speaking directly with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati speaking directly with the all of the next gurus coming. So, like with our Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, all in this line. So it's unbroken, it's not interpolated. This is important to appreciate, because we see in other religions how this line doesn't exist. So everything has become speculative. But this line coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is intact, completely, without any blemish. We're getting exactly the same teachings that Mahaprabhu wanted to divulge to this world, under the guidance of Srimati Radhika herself, because all our line are all maidservants of Sri Radhika. So we should feel very confident of our lineage. With a simple heart, always sing about Gauranga's glorious qualities. I cannot see even one person as compassionate as he is in this ocean of material existence. It requires so much compassion on Krishna's part to come and benedict us with this confidential understanding of what is Braj Ras. Why should he do it? He's completely independent. But he's chosen to come and give this gift to the most fallen, in the fallen age of Kali. Our hearts should melt at contemplation on that. Why should Krishna do like that? Out of pure, he's called this Odarya magnanimity, this mood of Odarya mood. And he's giving that great abundance of kripa. Even though I chant Gauranga, my heart has not melted. How do I continue to maintain this body? How has Narahari been created with a stone in place of a heart? So we were saying yesterday how the realized soul is thinking of his condition as the lowest because he's actually looking at the highest. Srila Bhakti Rakshakshira Maharaj was asked the question, why are they always, these acharyas, proclaiming themselves the most fallen? And he says, if you go to the shore of the material ocean, a sensitive man will feel some humility when he appreciates the power of the ocean waves, etc., how mighty it is. It's more mighty than him. If he goes deep in that ocean, he'll be swept away and drowned. So we appreciate the potency in nature. What to speak of that sadhak who comes to the shore even of the transcendental ocean? What is he witnessing? The immensity of Krishna's potency in that transcendental ocean. So he feels completely insignificant in comparison to that. So they always are comparing themselves like that. They never feel for a moment. As soon as we start to feel that we have something of value, immediately that achintya bhav will be restricted because it'll be just our own idea of our brilliance or whatever. We may be brilliant in comparison to other people and so on in this material world, but it's still bound by time and space. But the transcendental world has no binding of time and no binding of space. So that's beyond. So we are all completely insignificant. So he writes that, how has Narahari been created with a stone? He's not just saying these words. This is how he's feeling in the depth of his humility. So Narahari Saka ki jai, Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai.
I can translate if you.
Huh?
I can translate if it's okay. Translate. Translate.
Well, then you have to sit with her and translate.
No.
We all we're on a live stream here. There's 100 people watching, listening, so you can.
А я потом YouTube слушаю.
Okay, so we come to our brilliant Jaiva Dharma. Yesterday we ran through the last 5, so today we'll chant the first 5. Pritivita yata kata dharma name chale bhagavata kaya sava paripurna chale.
As indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam, all the philosophies on earth that are celebrated as dharma are utterly deceptive.
Yeah. These are all bound, we were just saying, by time and space. So they're all temporary, material dharmas. And generally, we associate with these, of course, from birth, and so many births. So they make a sanskar, they make that impression in our consciousnesses. So in order to actually break out of that binding of the material, those material sanskars, we have to connect with a spiritual potency. And the only spiritual potency we can connect with is from the heart of Sri Guru. Sadguru is carrying that transcendental potency, and he has the capacity to actually impart it to the jivas. So without this connection, we can't reach the transcendental stage of consciousness. Totally not. How can something material produce something spiritual? It can't. If it's coming from a material place, it can't suddenly magically produce transcendence. It has to come from a transcendental place to produce transcendence. So bhakti sanjataya bhaktya. Bhakti comes from bhakti, from the heart of one who has bhakti. This is the only place. There is no other solution except sadhu sangha. There isn't another option. The intelligent man will appreciate that, at least with his intelligence. Chale dharma chade karana satya dharma mate chatuvargya tyajitara nitya prema gati.
One should completely abandon such deceptive dharmas and absorb his mind in true dharma. In other words, one should give up the fourfold goals of material life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, and aspire solely for the ultimate destination of nitya prema.
These are all fourfold goals of material life. But throughout the Puranas and so many of the itihasyas, etc., these four goals are made prominent. It's called karma kand, and gyan kand. Even in Srimad Bhagavatam, when Bhishma Dev is leaving his body, all the rishis and sages assumed that he had attained moksha. They assumed, because he was such an incredibly elevated personality, they all assumed and they celebrated, oh, he must have attained liberation. But actually, Bhishma Dev went way beyond that. He attained residence in Vaikuntha. He left this material conception. It's described in the 9th chapter of the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So all of this prompting to take shelter of Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha is part of the purifying process. When we become purified by following these four material goals through the system of Varnashram, we can become purified sufficiently to be receptive to the delicacies and sensitivity of Shuddha Bhakti. This can actually, which is beyond. We were just reading before in Chaitanya Charitamrita about the pastime when Govinda, the servant of Ishwarapuri, he comes to Mahaprabhu straight after Ishwarapuri leaves this world. He's sent by Ishwarapuri. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is there at the same time. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is inquiring, why did Ishwarapuri engage a Sudra to serve him? Because in the Brahminical culture, a Sudra should not serve a Brahmana. According to worldly caste system, Ishwarapuri was a Brahmana. According to worldly caste, Govinda was a Sudra. And Mahaprabhu replies that Krishna is not bound by any rules and regulations of caste or creed. He's actually bound by the affection of the heart. This is what is described in a very beautiful purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He's bound by the affection of the heart, not by rules and regulations. And it's even saying there, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he says that he's not even sure if Krishna will listen to someone who is bound by the rules and regulations. He's not even sure if Krishna is going to listen to that prayer by that person. So Mahaprabhu answers very beautifully that this personality, Govinda, is beyond that conception. But he also says that by coming into contact with a Brahmana, a pure Brahmana, pure devotee, Ishwarapuri, he automatically comes to the qualification of a Brahmana. The Sadguru can transform the heart of a Sudra into a Brahmana by his own association. He transforms him. This is just what we were saying previously about you can only get bhakti through that association. Actually, this personality, Govinda, he's a Nitya Siddha Parika. In Vrindavan, he's called a Chet Guru, C-E-T. Not Chet Guru, Chet Saka. That's his identity eternally as a Chet Saka. There's two of them. There's Kashishvara Pandit, who is also a Chet. One is called Bringara and Bringura. And they're both cowherd boys in Krishna's pastimes. And they walk behind Krishna, carrying his flute, carrying his bugle, carrying the ropes for binding the cows, etc. Any paraphernalia that Krishna needs, these two sevaks never leave Krishna. They're always there with him in all the cowherd pastimes. So this is actually his true identity. And then he engages for the rest of his life in service to Mahaprabhu. And such exemplary service that we see Govinda performs to Mahaprabhu. Remember the time when Mahaprabhu heard the Gita Govinda being sung by some Jagannath Dasi, some woman was singing this, and Mahaprabhu was so entranced with the sweetness of that Gita Govinda that he ran through the bushes to listen to that. And when he was running, Govinda ran so fast and managed to tackle him down to the ground and said very loudly, "It's a woman who's singing." And Mahaprabhu came to his senses and he was so grateful. He said, "If I had run and embraced that singer, I would have lost all my principles. I would not have been able to establish this sannyas dham in the world for people to follow." Because Mahaprabhu established very strict, indeed, principles in the sannyas ashram. He was because he was giving the most esoteric direction of our bhajan. But he had to show that it was all internal, not external. It's not because if you get into the rasa shastras, you start dressing like a gopi or something like that, or you relax the external maryad, the external rules and principles, etc. Actually, you follow them more closely. My Gurudev was exactly the same. He would speak all these high, esoteric Braj pastimes, and yet there was never a time, I was with him for 20 years, I never saw one time when he transgressed the rules and regulations, not even a smell of it. He was so strict and so staunch externally, but internally, he was floating in an ocean of ras. So it's always the internal. Never try to externalize these Braj moods that may come in the heart at different periods of our bhajan. It's not an external path. It's all an internal appreciation and meditation. So we have to appreciate that. We don't. Otherwise, it's sahajya. We've described this before. Okay. Amitva mimamsa brahme nicha jate buddhi nirvishesha brahma gyan nahi chita shuddhi.
Those who are deluded identify themselves with matter. That is their error. However, one cannot be purified of such delusion by endeavors for Nirvishesh Brahmagyan.
So this is the same theme, that we're being influenced by the illusion of matter if we don't connect with the purest aspect of bhakti. Vichitrata hina hale nirvishesh hoy, kala simutalia seha aprakrita noy.
The Mayavadi thinks Sri Krishna to be subject to the limitations of time, such as birth and death, and considers that he is not transcendental.
How can he think he's transcendental if he doesn't have any awareness of transcendence? How can he even consider that? Therefore, he places everything. It's like they look at Krishna covering him with their own preconceptions. You know, someone who is a neophyte devotee will try to envisage like that. What he understands, he tries to overlay on Krishna to bring it into his own cognition, rather than accepting the achintya bhav, the inconceivable nature of Krishna. How can Krishna, when he's a 7-year-old boy, lift a huge mountain? It's inconceivable, but we accept it with great happiness and joy. How can he kill like a 12-mile high demon when he's only like 3 days old or something? How can he do something like that? It's all achintya bhav. And the devotee relishes hearing these things. It's astonishing. Without this mood of astonishment, there's going to be no opening for the consciousness to actually break through.
Thus, he rejects Sri Bhagavan's Vichitrata, astonishing characteristics, paraphernalia, qualities, and Leela. Through this vicious attempt, he is left with the philosophy of Nirvishesha Brahma.
That's all he's left with. Just that place of consciousness, which is like void. It contains knowledge, but there's no qualities in there. There's knowledge and vairagya. Kande gyana hoye dharma achesha nishchaya prakritita hoyle kabu aprakrita.
Such base and contemptible gyan, which arises out of an attempt to dismember the divine form of Bhagavan, is only fit to be rejected. It is prakrita, materialistic, and should never be given credence as aprakrita dharma.
So we see, and we've talked about many times, that in this Falshruti, it seems like it's repetitive, but we have such a deep disease that we need to hear it constantly, again and again and again and again. I am not the body. My identity, my abhiman, is actually spirit. So to connect with the spirit, we have to have someone who is in cognizance of the spirit. Otherwise, how can it possibly manifest that realization? So we must diligently pray for that devotee to manifest. Okay, so we're coming back to our 19th chapter, and yesterday I read through it, but I wasn't completely satisfied because the light was off, it was very hot, and it was such a profound topic. We're actually entering into the very confidential precepts of what is bhakti. This is the Abhideya. And during the conversation yesterday, we were introduced first of all to Vijay, the uncle of Brajanath. And Brajanath, Vijay is meeting for the first time Raghunath Das Babaji. And Brajanath is asking many beautiful questions about Shuddha Bhakti. And almost immediately, Babaji chants this beautiful verse, Anya Bilasita Sunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anaritam, Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam, Bhakti Uttama. What is Bhakti Uttama? So this is Rupa Goswami defining this. So I was very briefly going over this verse yesterday, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth today because Bhaktivinoda Thakur doesn't here, he does in Bhakti Tattva Vivek, he goes very deeply into this verse. But here he doesn't go quite so significantly into it. So it's important to appreciate that this Anyabilasita Shunyam, this all desires Shunyam, expelled, it's saying. Then in the second line, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. This Jnana and Karma are covered. Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. They are rejected. But it's described that if they were reduced to zero, shunya, he hasn't written shunya, he's written just anavritam. If he wrote shunya, we can't live without performing karma and gyan. We have to get up, walk around, do all, every action, we're creating karma, etc. We're living our karma. So that has to go on, otherwise we would die. And then there's the two aspects I described a little bit yesterday of gyan. This is very important to appreciate. So I said the two. Remember, tat, padartha gyan, is about Krishna. So there are 6 aspects about Krishna that Srila Rupa Goswami describes. 6 qualities of Krishna. The first is called Paramatatva, Prakrita Guna. That Supreme Lord has no material qualities. That's the first one. If you need to note these down, it's very helpful because then you get the tattva of Krishna, Krishna tattva. First one, he has no material qualities. Second one, he's aprakat guna. He only has spiritual qualities. This is the second one, just spiritual qualities. Then the third one is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. He is the embodiment of Sat Chit Ananda. The very embodiment of that is Sri Krishna. Then the fourth one is Achintya Sarva Shaktiman. He's the inconceivable aspect of Shakti and Shaktiman. So we've been through this beautiful 14th chapter, really describing Shakti, Shakti Tattva. So Krishna is that Shaktiman, as well as the Shakti, just like we say the sun has its heat. So the sun is like one, but you can separate them for describing the dynamic of the sun with the sun planet and the sun heat and the sunlight. They're all the same, they're all one, but we can look at it as 3. So he is Achintya, Sarva, Shakti, Shaktiman. Inconceivable. All Shakti and Shaktiman. This is the fourth one. Then the fifth one, he is Rasaraj. This is the fifth. We should know tattvically how to describe Krishna. So what I'm giving here are the six qualities, we can say, or not six qualities, the quick six definitions of who is Krishna. He has no material qualities, and he has all spiritual qualities, and he's Satchitananda Vigraha, and he's Achintya Sarva Shakti. And the next one, he is Rasaraj. He is the king of all rasa. He's the embodiment of rasa. He contains all ras in existence, and his Shaktis bring out that ras. This is why Radhika, she manifests billions of sakis to satisfy the billions of tastes that the Supreme Lord has. Radhika just in one body, it's not sufficient for the hunger of Krishna to taste rasa. So all of these other sakis are manifested from his body, which is from her body, which is very indicative of the intensity of her seva to please Krishna. It's not that Krishna is prompting her any of this. This is her love for Krishna, which is actually manifesting this. So Rasaraj is the fifth. Then the sixth is Swayam Bhagavan. Throughout all Shastra, Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, is declared as that supreme one. No one is even close to him, what to speak of superior to him. So these six aspects comprise what we call tat, Padartha Gyan. Padartha Gyan is the knowledge that is beneficial for the jiva to understand, because it's saying here Gyan is expelled, more or less. Gyan is given up. So, but what Gyan is retained is the knowledge of Krishna and the knowledge of the jiva. This is very important. Who are you in relationship to Krishna? I am anuchit. I am very, very atomic inside. Krishna is vibhuchit or punachit. This is who Krishna is. Krishna controls Maya. I am controlled by Maya. These are the distinctions. So this type of knowledge is to be retained. But knowledge of Nirvishesh Brahm, it's called Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan. This is all explained. I gave you that book, that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bindu. In the Bindu, there's maybe 18 pages of description of this particular verse. It's very extensive, and it's really important for us to have this as a foundation. Otherwise, how will we know what is bhakti? We must know clearly what is Shuddha Bhakti, what is pure. Otherwise, how can we fix our focus on our goal without knowing what is bhakti? Because there is Aropsiddha Bhakti, which is also credited as being bhakti, but it's not the topmost. So Aropsiddha Bhakti is like sakam karma. It's like I'm doing something and I'm putting Krishna into it, but it's not the priority. I like to cook, so I will cook for Krishna. I like to paint, so I will paint for Krishna. It's all starting with me. There's a mix. Some karma mishra is in there. It's mixed. It's called Aropsiddha Bhakti. So the sadhak can actually, I like to cook. So anyway, like that. So all these different qualities that I have myself that I'm just offering to Krishna. So this all has to be examined by the sadhak. And then Sangha Bhakti. I'm looking at all the qualities of the devotees, but if I'm omitting the principal quality of Sharanagat to Krishna, then all these qualities have no real potency. I may be very good, I may be very loving, I may be very compassionate, so many brilliant Vaishnava qualities, but if surrender, if Sharanagati is not in there, then it's nothing. It's just like a karmi, basically. It doesn't have the essential ingredient of seva to Krishna, because that is what is going to create the inspiration for devotion. When I'm performing seva directly for Krishna, then at some point that devotion will become appreciated in the very heart. And then this path of serving Krishna without awe and veneration, without any Aishwarya, just in pure Madhurya. This is what will capture Krishna's attention. It won't capture Krishna's attention, I've just described. Prabhupada is saying that he doesn't even know if Krishna is going to listen to some prayer with so much Aishwarya. Krishna becomes like the witness, like Paramatma, that's all. It's not like the relationship. So this is Tvam Padartha Gyan. So Tat Padartha Gyan and Tvam. This is the knowledge that is to be retained. So I just wanted to express that part. And then yesterday we spoke about the avyapti and ativyapti, the overextension of this rule of bhakti and the underextension. It's like it would seem that if it's just to please Krishna, then Chanura and Mustika were very much pleasing Krishna. Krishna loves to wrestle. But these wrestlers, huge wrestlers, they wanted to kill Krishna. So that's not bhakti. Of course it's not bhakti. And then Mother Yashoda, she bound Krishna, and Krishna was very unhappy with that. But was this bhakti? This is bhakti. Yes, because her ultimate objective was to please Krishna with the milk that she was making into makhan, making into butter. That was her objective, to please Krishna. So then it's bhakti. But these are just isolated examples, but we should consider all of these examples in our own lives. We should look closely at my activities. Am I trying to please Krishna sincerely? Is that my objective? Do I genuinely want to please Krishna? That we have to consider again and again. My Gurudev used to say, 5 times a day, we should reassess our focus on our activities. What am I doing now? What am I doing now? Am I performing bhakti? Am I performing swarup bhakti? This is the highest conception of bhakti. This is uttam bhakti. 3 types of bhakti: swarup bhakti, aropa siddha bhakti, and sangha siddha bhakti. These are what's described in this verse. So swarup siddha bhakti is the topmost bhakti. So we have to assess again and again and again and again. What's that? Apratihata. Unmotivated. Huh?
Ahaituki aprat.
Ahoitiki. Unmotivated and uninterrupted. This is bhakti, because this is the topic that Babaji is explaining. This is the topic that he's explaining. What is bhakti? This is Vijay Kumar's actual first desire, or Brajana's question here. This is the introduction to the Abhideya. You see? So, and then Brajanath, he asks, what are the characteristics of bhakti? Then we have this beautiful verse, Klesh Agni Shubhada, that all sufferings are incinerated. Agni, incinerated, gone away. All material sufferings are not there for the bhakta. He doesn't have any material difficulties because he's practicing on a pure spiritual path. If his sadhan bhakti is focused on bhav bhakti, there must be no compromise on this. If your practice of sadhan is not exclusively focused on bhav, and Urgai asked a very nice question this morning. How can I understand what is that bhav while I'm chanting, for example? And I was explaining that to put the consciousness into Vrindavan to begin with, and the residence of Vrindavan, and the relationships that all the Brijbasis have with Krishna, and that mood of being with Krishna. Krishna is only complete in Vrindavan, Brajendranandan. In Dwarka, in that Aishwarya mood, that is not the complete Krishna. It's like we have the moon and we have the quarter moon and the half moon and so on. It's all Krishna. But the complete full moon of Krishna is Brajendranandan Sham Sundar. And he only comes once in the day of Lord Brahma. But when he comes, he demonstrates all his amazing leelas. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusyam deha ashridata bhajate tat rishi kritva ya shrutva tatparo bhavet. This is saying that Krishna manifests just to demonstrate to the jivas his amazing leelas, his pastimes, particularly of Ras Leela. This is why he comes. He comes parityanai sadhunam vinishayatu, etc., to annihilate the warring armies. But principally, he's coming to demonstrate this Leela Madhuri, Prem Madhuri, Rup Madhuri, Venu Madhuri. These four. How kind is Krishna? How kind is God? How kind is Krishna? He comes to show us this, you know, himself. But no one, of course, understood when Krishna was on the planet 5,000 years ago. This is why Mahaprabhu wants to come and open out. Let us now into Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu is coming to open the door. Come, come, come. Come into Vrindavan. I will describe to you the nature of the relationship between Krishna and all the gopis, especially in Puri, when he's tasting that separation mood of Radhika, that Vipralamba Bhav, which breaks the heart of the conditioned soul. In Navadvip, it's a different flavor, but in Puri, it's all separation mood. So this is Krishna. So the focus of Bhav is to be thinking of these topics. How can you think of these topics if you don't refresh and read about these topics daily? If you lose contact with your Chaitanya Charitamrita in particular, because this Chaitanya Charitamrita is like the PhD. We have our Bhagavatam. The first 9 cantos are almost like the Puranas, actually. But the commentaries, they are the ones that are indicating Braja Prem. The commentators, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, all of the purports, the commentaries, they are indicating the highest conception of Krishna in Vrindavan. But the actual verses and so on, they're wonderful, inspiring pastimes to get faith, sambandha. The first 9 cantos are about sambandha gyan. We have Ajamil, we have Vritrasura, we have so many descriptions of incredible pastimes being performed. But the principle is only going to happen in the 10th canto, when Brajendra Nandan Shyam Sundar appears from the womb of Mother Yashoda in Vrindavan. And what are his childhood pastimes? His Balya Lila, then his Poganda pastimes, then his Kishore pastimes. What are all those distinct? So I'm thinking about these while I'm chanting. And then by the power of the chanting, by the power of the mantra, it will support our meditation on these topics. But if in my mind I'm chanting thinking, oh, I got to do this today, I got to write that letter, I got to sweep the floor, I got to go here, got to go there. No. Zero. It takes practice. Sometimes it takes years of practice. I've been practicing for 40 years and still I haven't reached, a clear focus on Bhav. Still I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to remember these pastimes, to refresh these pastimes, especially the teachings of Rupa Goswami. If I can immerse my consciousness today in the teachings of Rupa Goswami, then tomorrow morning, early, while I'm chanting, I'm going to be remembering those pastimes. But if today I haven't really opened any granta that's going to lead me in that direction, then how is it going to rise in my heart? This is a true path. Whatever you absorb in your heart today is going to rise tomorrow by the power of the mantra. 100% fact. 100% fact. If you get involved in so many material activities, management even, all these kind of things, all leading to apparently devotional service, but if they're not really clearly focused internally on devotional service, it's not going to bring us closer to Bhav Bhakti. It's a fact. So what is Bhav Bhakti? That will be discussed in the 22nd chapter. But he's just describing the characteristics. So the first characteristic is Klesh Agni Shubhada. This Shubhada, it creates auspiciousness. When these sufferings start to be reduced in the sadhak's heart, our whole life becomes very auspicious. It becomes like we don't make mistakes. It's not like we get into great external difficulties. Everything is very like you're on a silk road. It's very easy to perform bhajan, etc. Because Yogamaya, because all our Guru Vargya, they will all see it's such a rare thing to come. I was just discussing with my friend from South India, from Brahman history in the South, and no one understands Mahaprabhu. No one understands Shuddha Bhakti. They all following Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha. That is what is described. The smartest, that's what's described. So when Krishna sees someone is actually wanting to take advantage of Mahaprabhu's teachings and come to this path of Bhav Bhakti, because we cannot attain prem. We described that yesterday. You can't reach that capacity. It's not possible with the body. It would explode. It's too hot to handle. But Bhav Bhakti, and even at the stage of Bhav Bhakti, there can be distraction. It's not complete then. We see in the example of Bharat Maharaj, he was in a stage of Bhav. It's described there in the 5th canto. His hairs were standing on end, tears were streaming from his eyes, he was perspiring, etc. in his worship. But then he got distracted by the deer and ended up by having to take 2 more births in this world. So at every step, we need to be crystal clear on the focus, and particularly like when we're chanting these various bhajans. If we get familiar with chanting bhajans regularly, especially, for example, in the time of Kartik, in the month of Kartik, this is very much supportive for our bhajan, because every single day we're singing a set of special bhajans, Radha Kripa Kataksha, Namami Nandanandanam, the Damodarastakam. They're all very confidential bhajans about Radha and Krishna. So that gives great absorption for the consciousness in those pastimes. So then when we chant, we can remember those pastimes. It takes cultivation. You can't just do it if you're racing around here and there and everywhere. It won't happen. It just simply won't happen. But if your Guru Maharaj has instructed us to do something of this nature, then that is the highest thing, the priority that we have to follow. If he's given us that priority, you should build a temple or something like that, then he will infuse your heart with the proper vision of Bhav Bhakti while you're doing that materially, aspect of construction or something of that nature. But if he hasn't, and you just independently go and do something like that, how is that going to bring a fruit of Shuddha Bhakti? It won't. So we have to give this thought. It's that inner path that we have the option to cultivate or not. Depends on our enthusiasm. If you want to go this inner path, then it requires one quality: greed. Die to live. If I actually want it, I've got to become totally sober from the material attractions. That's part of the journey, to bring the temperature down from the attraction to the material world. And that can come in so many different forms. Subtly, we're wanting to maintain our relationship, our reputation, fame, adoration, and distinction. These 3 subtle aspects of sex life. Sex life is the most, the biggest enemy, the all-devouring enemy. Karma Esha, Krodha Esha is described at the end of the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is the all-devouring enemy, is lust. And it's not just a man for a woman, it's a man for his own glorification, etc. Because that's what happens if we're not getting that attraction to Krishna. If we're not able to be inspired daily by Krishna's remarkable pastimes. And the Acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in particular, have elucidated, they've described these pastimes so deeply and incredibly. If you read our English Sa'artha Darshani, this is so beautiful description of the 10th canto. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is only He's the deepest Rasik Acharya. He's the same as Rupa Goswami. He's come again from Rupa Goswami. This is called sadhan. So our topic is sadhan. So this is what I'm talking about. So Kleshagni, Shubhada. And then what is Bhav Bhakti? Moksha, Lakhuta Krit. This disdain for liberation. Genuinely, that feeling for shanti, everything should be nice and I'm happy in a, no problems, chill, This is like subtly wanting liberation. This doesn't. Do the gopis walk around thinking they want shanti? They're distraught. They're searching through the forest for Krishna. They have this intense lobha, this intense greed. And it's the power of the holy name that increases this greed. And it even can increase your greed for material pleasures. The holy name will work under any circumstances. It'll fulfill your desires. If your desires are for fame, adoration, distinction, bang, the holy name will facilitate. If your desires are for karmic rewards, bang, you'll suddenly get a whole lot of money through the post. If that's your actual desire. So we have to find this whole study of our Jaiva Dharma. This is what it's focusing on. What is our end objective? This is why we're reading this Jaiva Dharma. And then Moksha Krit Sudulabha. This is incredibly rare that someone should come to this stage of rejecting moksha because they have an inclination towards bhakti. This is so rare. So then Sandra Ananda Visheshatma. Now this is prem. And I explained yesterday the word Sandra. Do you remember what I said?
Nothing else.
Auspicious.
Huh?
Nothing else than Ananda.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing proposition? Nothing else except Ananda can enter in that door. When I first understood that and heard that explanation, I was like astonished that only Ananda can go through that door. That is prem. There isn't anything else. There's no logic, there's no rational. It's all just bliss. Only bliss can enter that door, that Ananda. And then Sri Krishna Akashani Chasan. Even this will attract Krishna. So this is basically where we reached yesterday. We reached this point yesterday. So I wanted to go over that again because there were so many significant points. I was actually going to read it, but then I just thought I would speak it. But basically that's just elaborating on the 2 pages that we read yesterday. So very exceptional. So now we're going to go on with the next question is, how does bhakti destroy distress? Now Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to go through these 6 characteristics. Brajanath is going to question him on each of them and unpack them for us. It's very systematic, the way Bhaktivinoda, it's a very delicate quality, a very delicate commodity, we can say, bhakti. It can't just be, thrown out there. It has to be gradually, sensitively crafted in such a way that we will hear it and be inspired to embrace it. If we don't have we can't force bhakti ever. You can never berate someone and try and say, oh, why aren't you doing devotional or something like that? Devotion comes from your independent desire to please Krishna. It has to be your independent desire. It's always your independent desire anyway. If you tell someone to do something, they independently choose to do it or not do it, right? So your independence has to be there. And if your independence is choosing to cultivate devotion, then all the support will come to you to do that. If that is our real intention, to perform pure devotional service with no ulterior motive. And Krishna will be so pleased to go that route. Okay, so our time is over. I feel like we need to go for another hour or something. But really and truly, this was such a nice question you asked me this morning. That's why I gave you a 10-minute audio to respond, because it was he was asking, how can one focus on Bhav Bhakti? What were you speculating on? What were you saying that you thought it was? You were saying something. Is it this or is it that or something? You said something. You don't remember. But it's not, it's about our absorption in the Vrindavan pastimes particularly, because that's where Krishna is Brajendra Nandan Shyam Sundar. This is where the Bhav is going to be. So as much as possible, we're not reading the pastimes of Dwarka. 10th canto has 90 chapters. 42 of those chapters are all about Dwarka. They're all very exciting, very passionate. Krishna kidnapping Rukmini, all sorts of demons being killed. Very exciting. The mind can hook into it very easily. But the Rupias Kripa Sindhavya Patitanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.